Call to order. I now call to order Marin Wildfire Executive Committee regular meeting of August 7th, 2025. Martina, please call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum present.
Absolutely. Starting with Director Rodoni,
Present.
Director McMillan, Director Kohler,
Here.
Director Hilliard.
Here.
And just to inform the committee that we do have a quorum. However, it does appear that, or according for attendance, Director Kurtz will not be here this afternoon and Director Goins has not joined us yet.
Thank you. There he is.
Please let the minutes reflect that Director Goins is present for this morning's meeting.
Okay. So, President Kurtz is not here, so I'm doing the meeting this morning. So item 3 is agenda adjustments. I'll entertain requests to adjust the order of the agenda. Are there any agenda adjustments? Seeing none, we'll move on to open time for public expression. The public is welcome to address the executive committee at this time on matters not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of the committee. Please be advised that pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2, the committee is not permitted to discuss or take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Please silence your cell phones during the meeting and mute your microphone when not reporting out. Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to make any kind of comment at this point?
There are currently no attendees in person and I see no hands at this time.
Thank you. Okay, no public comment. Then we will move on. Item 5, Executive Officers Report. Mark will present the Executive Officers Report. Yeah, so Mark, it's up to you.
Good morning. Welcome back after a month of being off from meetings, and actually a little bit more than a month for being off for the exec committee. If I remember right, we didn't have an exec committee in July. So this will be our first exec committee since June. So I hope you guys had some nice first Thursdays of the month off. As normal during the fire season, I like to show the significant fire potential outlook. Again, remember this is averages. So August, it's looking like regular fire season for us as far as potential for significant fires. But then as we expected, when we get into September and October, you start seeing above average chances of significant fire in Northern California and specifically in Marin. I do think it's interesting how they dropped off parts of the Coast and Cascade regions from significant for October. I'm thinking they're anticipating some late season moisture up there that may perhaps decrease the fire behavior. As many of you know, we did have our public hearing for our public works plan for our coastal zone work 2 days ago. Well attended. Staff presented the public works plan. And as a reminder, a public works plan is a streamlined permitting process. So it's not the permits for the work that we'll be doing. It's a streamlined process to get the permits through the Coastal Commission for the projects that we want to do. And additionally, each project will require its own environmental compliance. So still lots of work before we can do work through the public works plan in the coast. However, we do have an approved governor's exemption for many projects in the coast. So we're actually in the scoping phase for one of our projects in the coast right now. So once we do some biological reviews and some additional work, we're actually going to be engaging in some work out in the coast in the near future. We did have a recent visit from the fire representatives and also some nonprofits from South Lake Tahoe. No, none of their elected officials, so I didn't invite any of our elected officials, but a lot of the fire chiefs and executive officers of nonprofits came and asked us they asked us basically the Marin Wildfire story. How did we come about and how are we getting our work? So we were able to share that information with them, and hopefully South Lake Tahoe is going to be able to follow our lead and get some type of holistic wildfire mitigation process going. They're already doing a lot of great work. This would just amplify the great work that they're doing. In fact, we mentioned to them some of the things that we're doing here in Marin has been following some of the things they started, and we just have had the ability to amplify because of having an organization that solely focuses on on wildfire and wildfire only. We had several fire chiefs there, and I asked each of the fire chiefs, I said, how much of your effort day to day is focused on wildfire? And you could see their gears turning because they have, structure fire, medical aid, hazmat, municipal prevention, all those other things that a fire chief has to consider. And it's like, it's probably less than 10% of your time you can focus on wildfire, right? They're going, that's accurate. I go, guess what? Me and my staff, 100% of our time is focused on wildfire. And so I think that's, besides our funding being only focused on wildfire, I think that's the advantage, is that you have a group of people that their sole focus is wildfire, and it can relieve a lot of that burden off the fire chiefs. And then another reminder, you'll get one last reminder at the board meeting. We have Ember Stomp coming up on September 6th. We're looking to make it bigger and better than ever before. A lot of the focus before has been Fire Safe Marin side by side with Marin Wildfire supporting Ember Stomp. This year, we are pushing Marin Wildfire up front. And you will actually, as you enter Ember Stomp, you're going to go through a little maze that shows the wildfire history of Marin leading to the development of Marin Wildfire. And then we will have a booth or a tent for each of our 5 goals that will be staffed by individuals, and then there will be an action item at each of those 5 goals that residents can engage upon with staff. So we're pretty excited about that. And maybe a little bit too soon to advertise, but I'll do it anyway. CSAA, one of the most forward-leaning, in my opinion, insurers in the state in wanting to maintain insurance, insuring people in California, has approached us, and we're close to finalizing the agreement that they're going to be offering 5 $1,000 gifts or raffles for residents for home hardening, defense zone 0, and defensible space. And they'll have a booth there. They'll have a whole raffle going and inviting people, and they don't have to be a CSAA member to receive the $1,000 gift. So great partnership with CSAA. We're very excited about that. With that, I'll stop my screen share and take any questions.
I just want to make a comment on Ember Stomp. Our Citizens Disaster Council met yesterday. I'm not part of it because it's the mayor and vice mayor, which I'm no longer. But last year we did a drill for all of Fairfax, and the mayor is taking that on. But what they're going to do is make the drill end up at Ember Stomp, which I know is something that was talked about, but more formal than just showing up at Ember Stomp. They want it to be more regimented. So just something to take back to your groups, because for Firewise, it counts. But besides that, we want people prepared.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a great opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what I omitted from my report on Ember Stomp is that we are hosting at Ember Stomp a self-paced countywide evacuation drill. So we're working with all of the fire chiefs and police chiefs in the county to encourage their residents to use Ember Stomp as an opportunity to exercise their evacuation process. It's self-paced, so we're not going to say ready, set, go, but we're asking people to show up, bring their go bags, and there'll be a station for them to actually go in and engage with people on and describe how they, quote, evacuated to the fairgrounds. Probably not a good idea, given that we'll be parking there.
I just know when we did the drill last year in Fairfax, one of our ex-mayors shoved her cats in a couple of carriers and forced them to go to St. Rita's. But we did have dogs too.
Thanks. Are there any more? Thank you. Are there any more questions, comments? Okay, I will now take comments from the public. Are there any comments from the public on the executive officer's report?
I see no hands at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll bring it back to the committee. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, then we'll move to the consent calendar. The opportunity for the public to comment on the consent calendar will occur on the committee's discussion of the consent calendar. The committee may approve the entire consent calendar in one action. In the alternative, items on the consent calendar may be removed at by any committee or staff member for separate discussion and a vote. There is only one item on the consent calendar this time. So do I have any reason why we could not vote on the one item? But would you like to pull it or no?
We just have to allow for public comment first.
Okay, good. So hearing none from the committee, is there any public comment on consent calendar?
There are no comments at this time.
So I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded.
That's a
And-
motion from Director McMillan with a second from Director Kohler. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And let the minutes reflect that the motion passes with unanimous vote of all in attendance.
I just want to remind folks, since I'm a board member of the Media Center, even though we can hear ourselves in the room, if you don't press your microphone when you're talking to say aye, it's not recorded. So just a reminder.
Would you like to redo it? Do you feel that you, okay, all right. So the consent calendar is approved. Thank you so much. Now, item 7, Board of Directors review, agenda review for our upcoming meeting. So Mark, will you make the presentation?
Yeah, I'm gonna start it off and then I'll pass it off to Ann because the bulk of it is going to be presentations from Ann and her team during a board of directors meeting. Normally, if our only item for the exec committee was to review the board of directors agenda, I would recommend not having an executive committee. But due to the robust nature of August's board of directors meeting, we felt it was appropriate for us to have an executive committee so that Ann can take a little deeper dive in 2 of the action items. For the consent items, they're fairly basic. We have the cost of living increase for Marin Wildfire employees following our compensation plan, which goes through, along with the April CPI, which is about, if I remember right, it's 1.7%. So we'll have a 1.7 COLA for Marin Wildfire employees. That'll be under consent. Then we have some of our standard quote project CEQA approvals that are basic enough that we don't feel are necessary for an action item. We have a quick budget adjustment for San Rafael. And then for the executive officer, as the executive officer, we can't have that the cost of living adjustment be a consent item, so it will be an action item. I'm going to skip down to 7D real quick and just talk about this is where we'll do our board of directors elections for president and vice president. President Kurtz will facilitate the August board meeting and then we'll transfer over to the new president and vice president at the next meeting. And then with that, I'm going to stop my screen share and hand it off to Ann so she could talk about the Greater Mill Valley fuel break and the San Rafael Hill and Deer Valley reduction projects.
Can I just ask one question?
You bet.
On the item about the vice president and president, since it looks like it's probably likely that I'll become the vice president, we need to appoint an alternate to the executive committee, and I'm hoping that we could include that as one of the items, and I'd like to propose Julie, but I just think that would be a good thing to do while we're doing it, so we don't have to do it another meeting.
What we've done in the past is the board president has the ability to appoint to the any of our committees, whether it's exec committee or finance committee. That doesn't require a vote of the
Okay.
board, and then we just recognize it at the next meeting that this was the changes made for those committees.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
That's right.
Good morning. So I'm going to just take a moment and provide a preview of 2 large projects that are going to be on the August 21st board agenda. Not full presentation, and we'll try to keep the presentations on the 21st brief as well. But we do have 2 pretty big projects going. So rather than presenting slides, I wanted to make sure that members of the public, anybody joining us online, can see where to find this information on our project web pages. So our project web pages are a great place to find project-specific meeting information, documents, slides, presentations, posters and handouts and all sorts of things online. With regard to any of the projects that you're interested in learning about. So first, under vegetation management in the southern Marin zone, I'm going to show the Greater Mill Valley Fuel Break Project webpage. So this project is a 23-mile long linear shaded fuel break. The linear portion of the shaded fuel break is about 345 acres. This is a linear defensible space buffer, basically, around the city of Mill Valley. And then the lighter purple areas are, from Cal VTP terminology, a WUI fuel reduction area. So this is another 328 acres for a total of 673 acres. So the idea here is to slow down the rate of spread for a wildfire that could be entering the community, reduce severity, intensity, flame length, and give first responders more of a chance to reduce the likelihood of the fire entering the community. There's a project description down here and KMZ files, all sorts of resources for folks who are interested. We've got a frequently asked questions document here. And we have public meeting information. So we held a public meeting on June 24th online for anyone interested in hearing about this project. The slides and the video from that meeting are available here for anyone who missed it. The document, we also have additional resources here about vegetation management in general. We've got a lot of great case studies from CAL FIRE about how vegetation management projects helped in fire suppression efforts. So we wanted to make those more easy to find. We've got them on our science and research page as well, but now we're linking them to some of our larger projects because it's really good information for those who are wondering, why do we add shaded fuel breaks to our suite of tools that we use? Home hardening, defensible space, public education, grants to residents to do that home hardening, evacuation planning, alerts, and shaded fuel breaks all work together to reduce risk as a whole. So once that document, the project-specific analysis and addendum prepared under the California Vegetation Treatment Program, Program EIR, is ready to post, which should be actually any minute. It will be located here under CEQA documentation, and I'll be sending out an email to many, many stakeholders, letting them know that the document is here. So we like to post these larger documents well ahead of board meetings to give everyone some time to take a look at the project. So the idea with this and any project is not clear cutting, but to thin out vegetation to more resemble conditions that would have occurred without widespread fire suppression on the landscape. Fire suppression on the landscape is a management decision, just like any other management decision. It has consequences on the landscape. And so we see that in a buildup of vegetation and deadened down material, et cetera. So this project would reduce that buildup. So this project includes a lot of project partners. Southern Marin Fire is taking the lead on this. City of Mill Valley was a key partner as well, and some of their property is part of the project area. Marin County Parks and Open Space was a key partner in the development of this project and will continue being a partner through implementation. We really got to put our heads together to see what our common goals were, like broom, non-native broom on the landscape, where could we remove some broom and also reduce fire risk. Marin Water is another partner on this project. They already have an environmental document in place for work on their property. So we show the polygon overlapping their property, but their existing environmental document is what governs how work happens on their property. So that's why you'll also see a notice of determination under consent for us to file so that the work, would be consistent with their existing environmental document. But we show it here in kind of a hashed area so that it functions as part of the larger shaded fuel break, and they're very willing partners to work with us to implement those portions of the shaded fuel break. So I guess that's it for this project. I want to also head to another project webpage.
Take questions now, or do you want for each
Way.
one, or
Yeah, either way, would you like to ask questions about this project?
does the committee have any questions or comments on this?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I'm just wondering how the work of all the scientists influenced the decision to do this
Oh.
Mill Valley Shaded Fuel Break.
I'm so glad you asked. Yes, so part of the planning process for this project in particular was to sit down with our fire modeling experts to look at the fire pathways modeling and see where fire pathways would enter the city of Mill Valley. In those locations, we did increase the width of the project area to address that increased rate of spread for potential fire. We looked at northeast wind conditions as well as winds coming out of the west, and really took a look at that fire pathways map with our project partners and figured out where to expand project areas to address that additional risk. So thank you for asking that question.
Barbara.
Yeah, I just have a question. Maybe I didn't understand. When you talked about Marin Water CEQA document, I'm assuming that's for only part of the project. So
Mhm.
are we doing more than that? I know you said we're doing a notice of determination, which I think I heard you say just relies on theirs. Are we doing something broader to cover the whole project?
Our environmental document is a project-specific analysis and addendum under the California Vegetation Treatment Program EIR. And that will be posted online this morning for all to review. And then the portions on the Marin Water property, we don't need additional environmental documentation.
No, I wasn't
under the
asking for that. I
CalVTP.
just wanted to
We
make
just-
sure.
Yeah, the process is just to file a notice of determination for us as a responsible agency to work on their property under their environmental document.
Hmm.
So we'll be doing that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? Dennis?
Just a quick one, and just to verify, the extended area that you may treat in certain areas is still a maximum of 300 feet?
The areas in the light purple are not necessarily a maximum of 300 feet. The dark purple areas, mostly we drew kind of a 300-foot wide linear polygon around the city of Mill Valley to evaluate, and we would implement within that polygon. It gives you a little flexibility to implement where it makes sense on the ground when you walk the area and you see a lot of fuel here and not much here, and structures here and there. We did include, so you can see kind of a northern spike in that purple polygon. That's a fire road where some work has taken place previously, but it makes sense to go ahead and continue that work and maybe expand it a little bit. But generally speaking, the dark purple polygon is about 300 feet wide.
Okay.
And the different colors exist because of the terminology within the CalVTP and the definitions of a fuel break, which is a linear polygon, and a WUI fuel reduction area. They're very similar, but within the CalVTP, you use different terminology to describe those two types of project area.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So some of that is very steep terrain. What
Mhm.
happens, how do we clear very steep terrain? Can we actually get up there and do it?
Yeah, we have a geologist who helps advise all of our projects, specifically any that take place on steep terrain or maybe have a history of landslides. And so we would adjust our treatment or possibly not treat at all certain areas that could be unstable. So, for example, in this project and many projects, we include the possibility of the use of herbicide. One of the reasons why we do that is because in some of these steep areas, you might want to leave broom roots in the soil, and the area will revegetate the following winter anyway. But you leave the roots in the soil to help maintain the stability of that area. So you would cut the broom and then dab a little bit of herbicide on the stump. So that's one of the things that gets recommended to us by our geologist, depending on the conditions. But we have her walk any areas of concern ahead of time, and sometimes walk with the crews and the project managers to make sure that we're following her recommendations.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee or comments? So now it's time for the public. Are there any public comments?
It looks like we do have a hand raised in the online audience. Looks like Michaela Cobb.
Michaela, would you like to say something?
Hi, Michaela, you should have the ability to speak now. Please be reminded that your comment may be no longer than 3 minutes. Can you let us know if you can? We can't hear you. I'm not sure if you've taken yourself off of mute.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Can hear you.
And your time will begin now, Michaela.
I wanted to know, is this work going out to bid, or do you guys already have a designated crew that will be performing the fuel break work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm happy to answer that. We do have various contractors on contract currently under master service agreements, and then we draft task orders under those agreements. And then we have a list of qualified contractors who've gone through some sort of vetting in terms of insurance and other requirements who are on our list. In addition, I know Southern Marin Fire is looking to create their own crew to conduct work within their jurisdiction. And in fact, Southern Marin Fire and has been working with us and others to find some outside funding for this project and that crew, as well as some other aspects such as the CWPP update. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
There are no additional hands at this time.
Okay. Please, Anne, go ahead with your report.
Great. So the second project that will be an action item on the agenda on the 21st is the San Rafael Hill and Deer Valley Fuel Reduction Project. So we've seen projects before on San Rafael Hill. We've seen goat grazing come through this board for approval. And we've also seen some defensible space work on San Rafael Hill just within 100 feet of structures. And so those projects have been underway, but that open space, city-owned open space in particular, has a lot of ignitions, a high unhoused population, and so quite a bit of risk that remains even after implementation of the two existing projects. So this project proposes to include most of San Rafael Hill, that open space, as well as Deer Valley, to mostly reduce non-native invasive understory, some thinning. There are a lot of weeds on this property, and so I know many of the residents have been very concerned for a very long time. Deer Valley, a little less so, and there are some areas that are quite steep that may remain untreated, or maybe just a little bit of treatment here and there with a hand crew. So total, we're looking at 122 acres. 79.1 acres on the San Rafael Hill open space area, and then 42.9 on the Deer Valley open space area. The unique thing about this project is that we would include some broadcast burning on the San Rafael Hill area. We wouldn't do that before doing the thinning and fuel reduction first. We would want to do that first so that fire intensity would remain low, and it would be a nice restorative controlled burn on that property. So the other thing that's unique about this project is we drafted an initial study mitigated neg dec or negative declaration under CEQA for our CEQA compliance. And that's although this project doesn't differ very much from projects that we've seen previously, the environmental review process is a little different than what we've done previously. So we decided to go ahead and make it an action item so that you could hear about this project before making a decision about it. As part of the process, there is a public comment period. So we held a 30-day public comment period from June 16 to July 17 or 16. And we, of course, sent information as we did for the Mill Valley fuel break, but postcards to residents in the project area. And we made this initial study mitigated neg dec available online and also in the office, a hard copy in the office for anyone who wanted to view it in person. We did receive a few comment letters, and responses to those comments will be part of the public document so everybody can see how their comments were responded to. And so this project will be also on the agenda for August 21, and happy to answer any questions about it.
Does the committee have any questions? Comments? Hearing none, does the public wish to make any comment?
It does appear that we have one hand for public comment. It looks like that's going to be from Larry Minikis. Larry, please let us know if you are able to take yourself off from mute. And just a reminder that your comment may be no longer than 3 minutes.
Thank you, Martina. And yes, good morning, folks. And thank you very much for this presentation. As some of you may know, I live on San Rafael Hill, and we've been there for nearly 40 years. I think we've been through at least half a dozen fires somewhere in that neighborhood. One time they even had to call in air support. It had gotten pretty serious. In any case, and you spoke to something really important about how heavily impacted parts of that hill are. And as some of you may know, there's an old quarry there. And immediately above the old quarry it is complete, as solid broom as you can possibly get, and Scotch broom as well. And that would seem, if it can be done, a reasonable place to do a cut and dab because of the steepness of the area, and also because it does present quite a danger. And I also want to say, I'm really appreciative of the work that's been accomplished so far. It's just great to look at. It was great to have folks up there working. They may still be up there. I'm just not seeing them right now, but I just want to express my personal appreciation there. Thank you so much, and good morning.
Thank you, Larry. That was very thorough. Thanks. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to make a comment on this?
I'm going to go ahead and just check in with Larry. Larry, it looked like your hand went down and then came back up. You did still have about 1.5 minutes with your previous comment. Did you have any additional remarks?
No, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself as you took me off, and I hit the hand by mistakes. My apologies.
Thanks a lot, Larry.
Thank you,
Sure,
Larry.
anytime. Take care.
Bringing it back to the committee, are there any additional questions or comments? Barbara?
Something on the agenda as a whole, I just want to ask about. Have we ever considered having a living wage for our contractors? Fairfax has one, and we just updated it last night, so it's for our contractors. And I don't remember this ever coming to the board.
I'm going to pass it off to Megan, who's
Yeah, we've
well
looked,
informed at our.
well, because many of our contractors, it's already set by state laws, prevailing wage, we sort of are bound by.
Those are for big projects. I'm talking about all these veg management things.
Yeah, even those often have some component that is covered by the state prevailing wage laws, but not every worker on those sites does. So we've never looked into a policy specific to MWPA for setting those wage rates at all, because we just didn't want there to be room for conflict. And the vegetation management, fire fuel reduction wages are actually about to be fully covered, it sounds like, by the state law. And so it may be sort of irrelevant for us to try to layer on top of that, because they've already assessed the wage that's appropriate for every region. But if that's something that the board wants to contemplate, we could look into it. But I think that that's been so in flux, because there have been proposals to have this type of fire fuel reduction work covered by prevailing wage explicitly. A couple of pieces of legislation went through and then were not approved and weren't signed by the governor, but the most recent one was. And so our impression is that it will take effect, I think, in 2026.
So for example, Forster, Kroger, they're not covered by prevailing wage. We've hired them before, and so they are our contractors for various things. So I'm just talking about living wage, so I can share with you what Fairfax did. It's, I don't know if the board is interested in it, but it would seem like it's part of an equity thing, and I am highly doubtful that a lot of those workers that are pulling broom are paid prevailing wage. And I wouldn't personally want to support that, because that would make it go up huge. I mean, the cost would go huge, but I sit on a legislative committee, and I haven't seen specific prevailing wage for veg management. So maybe not. It's just something to think about. And I can just share with you what we did in Fairfax, and if it's something the board wants to consider in the future.
I want to ask the committee, do you wish to put this on as an agenda item?
I just would comment, I would assume that we're all prevailing wage because it's public funds, but maybe I'm wrong. And, I guess the biggest question is what's the mechanism to verify that? So,
Right. Well, it's really, we give notice to all of our contractors that any workers subject to prevailing wage on those public projects must be paid prevailing wage. The state determines what type of workers are covered. And most recently, legislation was adopted that applies to fire fuel reduction projects. So it may actually apply to those broom pulling type projects. So we haven't seen it take effect. It will take effect in 2026. So unless conflicting legislation is adopted or there's something that limits that legislation as it stands, we believe it will take effect. Right now, some of the tree removal is already covered by prevailing wage and that type of thing. So it just depends on the project. And we, as an awarding agency, are responsible for notifying our contractors that they're subject to that. But the Department of Industrial Relations is really the one that's the enforcement agency for that. So all of the pay records are uploaded to the DIR directly. And we also have some oversight if we request copies of those. But beyond that, we don't really do a lot of verification beyond because we lean on DIR for that.
And we do have a relationship with the Department of Industrial Relations now to ensure the appropriate wages are being paid. And we've taken the conservative route of assuming that prevailing wages were required, knowing that the legislation was like Megan said, 2 previous assembly bills did not get signed, but the latest one did get signed. That's going to require prevailing wages for all of this work.
Why don't I just suggest that maybe we look into it further, because I'm highly doubtful that every contractor that we hire does that. And if it's something worth pursuing or at least looking into, it would be something the executive committee could discuss rather than bringing it to the full board. I don't want to start a hornet's nest here.
Yeah. We'll dig deeper.
Thank you, Director Kohler. And maybe there are more specific answers. If you get together with staff and say specific concerns, then you can address those specific concerns. That would help us define what we're doing. Thank you so much. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments about the agenda? I'm putting what to put on. So Anne, do you want to continue?
Those are the 2 projects that are going to be on the agenda as action items. So that concludes my report.
Okay. And are there any public comments?
I see no hands at this time.
Seeing no hands, no public comments, we'll move on to item 8. Did we just do that? So the committee member request regarding future agenda items. Do committee members have any requests for future agenda items?
yeah, I think this is a minor request. I'm wondering if in the future the minutes could reflect how many people are here present in the room and how many are online, just sort of to track that. I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay, thank you. So now we will go on to the next item, adjournment. So are there any, no, we're done, right? Any public comments on adjournment? Okay, so thank you so much. We are adjourned. Thank you. See you next 2 weeks from now at the regular board meeting.